Okay. Just to remind ourselves of why we're here. Remembering that, you know, for the Buddha, every single thought, every microsecond of our thoughts isn't just some useless thing that goes in and goes out and just disappears and has no result. Everything we do, think and say has a result. It's just the nature of it. This is the meaning of karma. So every thought counts. So we just think, you know, okay, I want to develop my own qualities, that's definite. I want to be happy, I want to suffer less. That's for sure. This I know. Don't need convincing. But also I can see too that I want to be useful to others as well. I don't want to make a mess, you know, in my relationships and in the world. I want to be useful. So think, okay, this is why I'm here. Listening to Buddha's teachings, to his methods, to his views, so that we can take them away and think about them and see if there's anything there that I can take in my life and apply, because I'm the boss, remember, that can help me develop my qualities, which in turn can help me benefit others. All the way to enlightenment. Think like this. That's why I'm here. So I'll just sing a little prayer that expresses that. And if you want to join in, I don't know what page it's on there. Maybe it's on this piece of paper here. Let's have a look. Yeah, on that bit of paper there. If you've got that one. Just that first little one there. We'll do it in Tibetan. If you'd like. Sangye chodang tsoke chognam la jancho badu dagni kyab suchi dagi chunyen gi pesonam ki drola penchir sangye drupha shog Sangye chodang tsoke chognam la jancho badu dagni kyab suchi dagi chunyen gi pesonam ki drola penchir sangye drupha shog Sangye chodang tsoke chognam la jancho badu dagni kyab suchi dagi chunyen gi pesonam ki drola penchir sangye drupha shog. Okay. So, you know, talking about this Four Noble Truths, looking at these Four Noble Truths, using that as our little package for the moment, we can see that Buddha's saying in the third one that we have the potential to be free of suffering. We have the potential to be free of suffering. Remembering too that when, you know, the Buddhist approach is that it's not just something you're supposed to believe in, listen to and get kind of moved by it and think, oh, far out, that's nice, I'll believe that. It's like instructions, you know. If this were cooking class, you wouldn't want to just get a good feeling. I mean, it'd be nice if the cook made you laugh, you can have fun. Might make them more interesting, doesn't it? But finally, you've got to take away the recipes. You've got to go home and put the stuff into practice. And if you don't, well, then why go to cooking class? And that really is again, it's an interesting thing to remember, you know. We don't see spiritual practice as practical, actually. We don't see spiritual teachings, even more so, as practical. You know, cooking class is very clear. You'd have your notebook there. If you missed one single thing, you know, the recipe would be a mess. You've got to be accurate. You'd have your books, you'd check it up, and then you'd go cook. Well, that's the approach to this, you know. Every word that's here, every word that's being said, actually, is something that you can use as advice, that you can put into practice. As to whether you do, that's your decision, but that's the way to listen to it. And so very much, before we go on again, let me talk about this a bit, actually. This is really the emphasis that Buddha puts on the mind. Mind meaning your thoughts. Your mind is your thoughts, you know. Your mind is your feelings. Your mind is what you think and feel every day. This is where the workshop is, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche says. And so one way of describing Buddha's approach to your lessening your suffering and developing your qualities, one way to describe the approach to that is in terms of simply changing your mind. It sounds almost ridiculous. Changing the way you think. Because the Buddha would say, Everything comes down to how we see things. Like we said last night, actually, in our minds, he's saying, right now, our minds are riddled with viewpoints. All our feelings and thoughts and things, which we just think are feelings and thoughts, They're actually, you analyze them, when you deconstruct them, they're all viewpoints. Anger is a viewpoint. Jealousy is a viewpoint. Attachment is a viewpoint. It's a totally interesting way to see it. And we'll look at this. So this is what we have to do. The Buddha's saying this potential to be free of suffering is just something is innate within us. And that part of us that it's innate, within is not the body, is not your toenails or your brain or your nervous system or your nose. It's your mind. And what's your mind? Your thoughts. Feelings and thoughts. That's what we have to become familiar with. That's where the workshop is. And so all of Buddhism, one way we're talking here, is about his view about the universe, about what the mind is, about how you come into being, about what happiness is, about what causes it, and so on and so forth. It's not just theory. It's not just empty words, Well, it is theory, but all theories, recipes are theory, but you've got to make it, don't you? You've got to use it. Same here. So finally, what you're trying to do as a Buddhist is, first stabilize your mind so you can then you can begin to do the actual job of changing what's in it. Buddha's a cognitive therapist. I'm not joking. So the crucial thing is to become familiar with this mind of ours, and this is one thing we can see in our culture that we're absolutely not, Who factors in the mind since you're born? Intellectual, yes. You learn about math, you learn about music. You change your mind in that way, isn't it? Do you see? You go learn new ways of thinking. This is definite. That's what we mean by education. But it's just the intellectual pursuits, or the music, the artistic pursuits. Emotional, we don't think like that, do we? We just think we're born with emotions. This is all how we are. It's sort of set in stone. And you're supposed to stumble along and do your best with it. You can see, isn't it? And then what happens as you go along in your life? Eventually you have breakdown. Well, if you never maintain your car, it'll break down. We don't believe in maintenance when it comes to human minds. We just think it's kind of damage control, Don't look at it. It ought to just run. And then eventually when you've got to find a therapist because you're having a mental breakdown. It's true, isn't it? But who gave you the methods? Who told you how to understand your mind when you were a child? Nobody. You didn't learn it at school. It's sort of so obvious. It's embarrassing, actually. We learn about the brain, yeah. We learn about the intellect. We're geniuses at that. But emotions, we haven't got a clue, So we all know since we're little children, there's so much stuff going on inside us, isn't there? All our feelings, all our dramas, all the jealousies, all the fears, all the anger, all the hurt, the depression, the anxiety. We all can remember. But where are the techniques we've been given, to understand this and change it? None. So that's all really Buddha's doing. He says it's just crazy to live your life like that. Of course you can understand your mind. Of course you can go deeply into it. Of course you can change it. It's sort of like a miracle for us to hear that, We know we can change our mind when it comes to math. At some point I didn't know that 1 and 1 is 2. I learned it and I changed my mind. And we can see the results of that, You can become great computer technicians on the basis of learning your sums. We know we can change our minds. We can begin by not knowing any music to the point of becoming like Mozart. We know we can change. But we don't know it when it comes to emotions because we concretize them. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Just because you're born not knowing maths doesn't mean it's self-existent. Forevermore you never know maths. Oh, I was born this way. What can I do? We don't think that. But when it comes to anger and jealousy, we think that, isn't it? It's kind of interesting. So this is what Buddha's dealing with, this part of our mind. What we mean by emotions. That's his expertise. So the job of being a Buddhist is knowing your mind and changing it. That's it, I'm telling you. Don't mystify it. It's the toughest job you'll ever do, that's all. So let's just look again at these Four Noble Truths. It's very tasty. So this potential to be free of suffering, like I said, to hear that first is very encouraging, it's very inspiring. To know that we've got the potential to quit the dramas, To have we've got the potential to stop having the mental breakdowns. We've got the potential to be stable and clear and brave and wise and loving and kind and patient and all these things. It sounds great, so exciting. And what Buddhism is a series of methods of how to do that, that's all. methodology. So he's saying, remember, about the mind. Your mind is not physical. It's not your brain. Doesn't come from a superior being, and doesn't come from your parents, and certainly can't come from nothing. So the way to think like this, just to get the feeling of it, as I said last night, I think of your mind as like a river of mental moments. A river of mental moments. In just the same way, like I said, your capacity to play music is that, isn't it? You carry it through every day. What you did yesterday, you haven't forgotten it all. When you put your hands on the piano today, you play it even better. So you carry, your music is this river of mental moments. And all the music you did yesterday has an impact on the music of today. So just think of your mind like that too. That your memory is there, isn't it? I mean, we know we're in trouble if we wake up this morning and we have no memory of yesterday and don't remember our name, this kind of thing. But there's some memory. We don't remember much of yesterday, frankly. I mean, we don't remember most of today, and it's only 9:30, actually, because the conceptual mind doesn't have the capacity. That's why we have to access a subtler level, and we'll talk about that. But we have some continuity, don't we? Some memory. We know our name, we know who we are, that I'm Australian and I'm Robina and I've got a family and I'm this and I'm a Buddhist nun and my jobs are this and that. So we keep something going, don't we? And that's all held in your mind. That's all Buddha says. So forget your brain. Stop thinking like it's your brain, You can see there's a relationship, no problem. It's just, it's the thoughts and feelings and habits themselves. These are the contents of your mind. So all of the stuff that we do and think and say today comes from yesterday. It's sort of obvious, You build up on it. So if you think of your mind like this as a sort of river of mental moments, and you know perfectly well you can track it back, and you know perfectly well just because you can't remember what happened at 11:07 last night doesn't mean it didn't exist. But that's a common logic we use for there can't be any reincarnation because I don't remember it. Well, there can't be any 11:07 last night, honey, you don't remember it. But we know that's not true. Even though you don't remember it, you know your mind existed then. It's just that you don't recall it. There has to be. And you think of it logically, you know that it's sort of not, your mind just doesn't exist sometimes and then it sort of disappears for 10 minutes and then it comes back again. You know that too. You see my point? It's this continuity, an unbroken river of mental moments, just logically so. Well, you track it back and you know there's going to be this unbroken river of mental moments of all your thoughts and feelings. Whether you remember them or not is another discussion, okay? We can see way back, way back, way back. And you keep going. Well, where are you going to end up? You're going to end up when you popped out the mother's womb, but then you've got to track your mind back a moment before that, don't you? So you're in the womb. So you keep tracking your mind back through those 9 months. You keep thinking, well, this is the big discussion in the West, isn't it? When we agonise over is abortion good, is abortion not good? Because we're trying to work out when does a human being start. It's so agonising for us because we only posit the body, you see. But if you're positing body and you're positing mind as two separate entities, which Buddha is, you can, as long as the body is kicking in the womb, there must be the mind there, present in it. And this certainly is the Buddha's view, what gives life to the body. The difference between your dead body and your live body is the presence of mind, the presence of consciousness. And that's where everything is held. The body's just this big lump of stuff, like a rock. It's got no nature of its own. The mind is what gives it power. So we can see in the womb, this body is growing, isn't it? This person's growing. So we can deduce from this, in the Buddhist view, that mind is present. So mind is present at 7 months and mind is present at 6 months. And you keep tracking it back. Mind must be present at 5 months. So you keep tracking back this river of mental moments and you get right back where? To the first moment of conception. So the moment before conception, egg was in mummy's body, sperm was in daddy's body. This we know. But where was your mind? Well, one option is the Western one, that mummy made it. With the body comes along with the mind, and mummy and daddy literally created you. They're literally your creators. Or you think God made you. Some superior being put the soul there, created you. Or the other option which is sort of, we don't think of it as one, but it's sort of one you can imagine, is that you just suddenly there's nothing, and then there's something. You pop out of the blue, You come out of nothing. That's not really not on. It's not on, because if you analyse the world, we can see that the logic of cause and effect applies to everything that we think about, everything we can look at. We know that this microphone, you can track it back, can't you? You track it back to its component parts, and those parts you track back to their parts, and those parts coming from something else, and that came from something else, and that came from something else. There's always this continuity. It's like chicken and egg. We know that if there's a chicken, there must have been an egg, and if there's an egg, there has to have been a chicken. So you think of your mind like this in terms of moments, this moment of mind. We know logically, if it exists now, this minute, it has to have come from a previous minute. The previous moment of mind is the cause of this moment of mind, if you like, in the simple sense. So you go back to the first moment of mind in your mother's womb, and we're just hypothesizing, you know, this river of mental moments. And if we're saying it isn't the body and didn't come from God, so then it has to have come from a previous moment of itself, doesn't it? It's quite simple, really. In the same way that your thoughts and feelings of today come from your thoughts and feelings of yesterday. I don't carry your memory around in my mind, you know. So I don't remember your headache yesterday, you know. You tell me about it, sure, but I don't have that in my mind. What's in my mind is my experiences. So the first moment of conception, where did that moment of mind come from? A previous moment. Well, where did that one come from? A previous moment. You've got to be very rigorous. You just do this even think it through. You know? So we're yearning to find the first moment, but there has to be, we'll say, there has to be a creation, a creator, a moment when everything began. We believe that absolutely, without question. Well, Buddha says it's a nutty proposition, because it assumes a first. If you assume, an absolute first moment, then that assumes there was no cause of it, doesn't it? You can't have something that exists that came out of nothing. We know very well you wouldn't say, like, what, right there's no cushion now, and then suddenly next second we see a cushion that literally manifested out of the sky. We know that's a crazy idea. Chickens and eggs the same, microphones the same, your mind the same. So logically, Buddha says, your continuity of mental moments has to be beginningless. You cannot find a first moment. Now, we don't mind thinking that when it comes to God. We're happy to think that God is beginningless. God is causeless. God is just existing. Well, Buddha says that's nothing holy. Your mind is like that. Every being's mind is like that, just necessarily. Mind is beginningless. This river of mental moments that we label Robina or whoever, it is beginningless. Emotionally it's an insane idea to us. But you can't have it logically, intellectually, you can't posit anything else. If you posit cause and effect, and if you posit cause and effect means that the fruit is similar to the seed. So when it comes to this universe, we're always convinced, the Westerners are out there the scientists are out there trying to find the first moment of the Big Bang, whatever. And as His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, and I'm just paraphrasing, one time in one of his discussions with the scientists, Big Bang, no problem. Just not the first Big Bang, that's all. And that's very simply the point, Of course everything has a first moment. Relatively speaking, we can label the moment this microphone all came in together and it started functioning as a microphone. Before that it was just bits and pieces, wasn't it? We can label the first moment when Robina began. We can do that. But the bits of Robina all came from something else, didn't they? So Big Bang. So this world, this universe, Buddha would say, is also the matter, if you like, of the universe, like the matter of the person. The matter of the mind, which isn't actually physical. That is beginningless. You can't have an absolute first moment out of which something exists, out of which, that there's nothing that then brings something. So matter is beginningless. Mind is beginningless. This is Buddha's view. This is his observation. This is his findings. So what are the implications of this? Because that's the real point, not just to have a nice intellectual concept in your head. The implications actually, experientially speaking, are massive. The more we analyse it, the more we look at it, You check the way we think now. We even speak like this. We certainly feel it. Well, it's not my fault. I didn't ask to get born. This is a really common view because we believe God made me or Mummy and Daddy made me. It's just a natural view in the world and there's no alternative view. No one ever says you make yourself. It seems a crazy idea. Well, effectively, that's what Buddha's saying. So just having this view, even if you're thinking about it well and meditating on it and attempting to apply the implications of it in your life, immediately it's obvious what those implications are. It's empowering. You stop becoming a victim. I didn't ask to get born, it's not my fault, is the absolute voice of the victim, isn't it? And that is ego. This is kind of interesting. This is the view the Buddha is saying. The more we look at this in ourselves, we see this is the view of ego. Ego is this poor victim. It got done to me. You check anger. You check low self-esteem. You listen to the voices behind. It's poor me. It's done to me. It's not my fault. It's not fair. I didn't do it. I didn't ask to get born. We take this as a given. We think of it as scientific fact. We never question it, not for a second. So just this view alone, bringing into your mind this idea and running with it, that your consciousness, your thoughts, your anger, your love, your kindness, your goodness, your badness is yours, and it has its source in your mind. Yes, there are external conditions that activate it. The punch, the kiss, the kind mother, the mean mother, clearly. But contrary to the held views that we've all got, that they are the main cause of why I think and feel things, Buddha's saying, sweetie pie, the main cause is you. You're going to find the main cause of who you are within your mind. And this is a big surprise. It's a brand new idea, you know. So it's not totally brand new, because we can see in our own lives that this is something we do struggle with, and why we go to our therapists, because we're trying to take responsibility. We're trying to grow up, aren't we? We're trying to wean ourselves from our mother. We're trying to stop blaming our mother. But, you know, the Buddha takes this to the nth degree. Because as long as, as long as you keep thinking your mother made you, but at the same time you're trying to let go and stop blaming her, there's a bit of a conflict there. Because like I said last night, if you follow that through really rigorously, you must blame her. It is her fault. And you should be happy to blame her. And that's fine. And that's why instinctively we do blame her, because Buddha says we have this misconception, the wrong view that she made me. So it's okay, we can kind of let go, we can accept the fact that she made me, but now I've got to become my own person. It's a bit difficult, but if you actually can posit that you are your own person from day one, your mother just gave you a body, that's all. She was very kind, and provided you with a nice warm womb to grow in. And a body, my goodness, how kind. But the person that occupies this body, the qualities, the characteristics, the anger, the love, the kindness, the potential, that's not your mum. She did not give you that. That's you. Like the music you can play today, you are proud to own it. It's your music. Like that, it's your anger, your love, your potential, your goodness, your badness. It's not such a complicated concept, but it's quite interesting. So that alone is the implication of hypothesizing that your mind is yours and it came from before, and you brought with you your characteristics. You came fully programmed, basically. The very first second of conception, all of Hitler's qualities were there, waiting to manifest, from the habit of having done them before. Mother Teresa, same. Mozart, same. Us, the same. And if you see, we're going to go into detail about all this, just talking about it broadly, If you read any of the Tibetans' experience, say His Holiness the Dalai Lama, only all these Tibetan monks and nuns who've been tortured and things, and they escape, What is really starkly clear, they suffer, they have sadness, they get brutalized, but they don't have this kind of panic and fear and mental breakdown response that is so normal for us, because they don't have the view, why me? Why is this happening? How dare this happen? It is not fair. I don't deserve this. They don't have the innocent victim concept. They know it is their doing from 22 lives ago or whatever. So just that alone brings sanity. That alone brings incredible kind of courage. I remember being in New York 3 years ago. Richard Gere had invited a bunch of His Holiness, and then had invited a whole bunch of ex-prisoners, about 20 of them, all of whom had done some kind of meditation in their incarceration, and then some people like me were invited as well, who work with people in prison. And I remember these two of sorry, two of the people who were invited also were two young Tibetan nuns who'd been tortured, imprisoned in Tibet and had escaped. And they were talking about their experiences, and it was clear their experience of torture and sexual abuse almost daily was far worse than all the other people who'd been in prison put together. You know, from the usual dramas of the racism and the sexism and just the suffering and the being incarcerated. It's kind of intense, you know. But it was really clear also that they were grounded emotionally. They weren't in a state of panic or rage or depression. They weren't on serotonin. They weren't having counselling. They had tools to deal with their suffering. But the crucial one, the underneath one, was this deep view that's in the bones of their being, just like for us, the view that I'm made by someone else is in the bones of our being, that their mind is beginningless and that they bring with them their own experiences and the consequences of their own experiences, including the good ones. We forget those. So already that gives them the basis for being able to bear the suffering and, crucially, for being able to forgive their torturers. They said they were very humble and very quiet. And of course, because we have this, we recognise that we have this connection with these people from the past, then, you know, we have harmed them in the past. So we can have compassion for them because they will suffer in the future. I mean, that's outrageous. But that fits. It fits with this philosophy. It doesn't fit with the philosophy of that you began in your mother's womb. You've never met these torturers, you know. If you don't have the Christian view that God made them too, you have no reason to forgive them. There's no reason, according to ordinary materialist view, why you should forgive anybody who tortures you. Why? You know? It's true. Christian view is because they're made by God as well. Good enough, that works. The Buddhist view is because, honey, there's nothing that occurs, and now we're talking about karma, nothing that occurs in your life, not a single thought, not a single action, not a single experience that could possibly occur in your life that isn't the fruit of a seed you planted. Just like it's not possible for there to be one weed or one herb or one flower in your garden that didn't come from a seed you planted. It's a very simple concept, you know. But because we're so deeply imbued with the view that I'm an innocent victim who got made by someone else, then we think all our experiences are surprising. They come out of left field. Now, we don't mind the good ones. We never say, why do good things happen? We don't care about that. We think they're surprising, like the bad ones, but we greedily grab them. More of those, please, because we like them. But we don't think there's a cause for them either. We call it good luck. It's like accidental, isn't it? That's how we think. It's a kind of crazy way to think. We don't think that when it comes to a garden. That would be very superstitious. You know everything in there is the result of your hard work, or your lack of hard work. You know it's your garden. You've got to own it. That's the approach to your own experiences. So we'll go into more detail about karma. I'm just talking generally, you know. So this potential, Buddha's saying, for happiness, this potential for freedom from suffering, is something innate, and all it really means is we're not set in stone. It's a movable thing, you know. What's there, like you know with music and math, you didn't know it once and you could learn it. Well, you know, like with anger, you did have it once, well, you can change it. You did have anger and jealousy and this and neurosis, and you can change them. You can grow your love. You can grow. They're not hit and miss affair. There's methods for them. It's not fixed in stone, you know. That's kind of a very liberating idea. So we can be free of suffering. Excuse me. So this is an interesting point. Freedom from suffering, just what it means. What's it mean when you break it down? Well, you flip it over, and it means full of happiness, doesn't it? So that's what Buddha's saying. Happiness is our potential. Joy, contentment, fulfillment, stably speaking. Not just something, again, hit and miss, you know. So if you would ask a Christian or a Muslim, do you have the potential to be happy, free from suffering? They will say yes. And that will be what they get when they go to heaven with God. Now, I'm not criticising that, just stating it, isn't it? Finally, that's when you really get happiness. If you ask a materialist, it's a bit depressing. Happiness, come on, forget it. Look at the world. But you check this. We never stop, ever, trying to get happiness. It's what defines our entire life. It's what informs every choice we make, just instinctively. Instinctively. So if on the one hand we cynically think it's not possible, but on the other we never stop trying, talk about conflict. That's like being absolutely convinced there's no way you could ever make a cake because there's just no such thing as a recipe. But every single day, 1,000 times a day, you're desperately trying to make this cake. You ought, I mean, any intelligent person would stop and think after 2 times of trying it. This is maybe wasting my time, bashing my head against a brick wall. But we just keep doing it, don't we? So we really ought to try and solve that conflict from the materialist point of view. So what's Buddha's deal? No worries, he's saying. Of course you can be happy. Of course you can be free of suffering. It's a process, and you have to learn it. But the potential is there. So he talks very much, like I said, about the very nature of mind, what mind actually is. And again, this is a crucial thing to really get clear. If you want to follow Buddha through a little bit, you've got to take as a hypothesis his idea about what the mind is, because all his teachings and his methods are based upon this view that mind is not physical, did not get created by someone else, did not come from nothing. All of the teachings on karma and his methods imply this one. So to get the overall picture all neatly in place, you've got to take this. You've got to run with this idea, you know. Not just believe it, I'm not saying that. Act as if, you know. If it were so, that mind is not physical, you know, like that. So what Buddha's saying, actually, is mind in its pure state, meaning mind when it's completely purified, mind when it's free of the neuroses, free of the pollution. And we'll talk about this because in the Second Noble Truth he describes the deluded states of mind, the neuroses, as one of the major causes of suffering. And we'll go into this. But here he's saying, basically in this, you know, that when your mind is free of the pollution, then what you've got left, what's left, is just the H2O, isn't it? That's the pure, clear stuff. It's its nature, pure, clear stuff. And as you think about that analogy of water, is quite simple. As long as there is that water, doesn't matter how polluted it is, we know, as long as there is that liquid, there is the opportunity to depollute it. And that means that if you could extract the waterness from the pollutionness, then the waterness is what's pure, isn't it? It's just its nature. Well then, you know, as far as the mind is concerned, Buddha's simply saying, really, that the good qualities, the positive qualities, and we're going to go into these, the good qualities, the positive qualities, they are at the core of our being. They are the H2O of your mind. They are what define you. They are who you really are. Now this is a surprise because we think it's the opposite. We think the bad ones are who we really are. We think we're naturally bad. We think we're naturally sinners. And as I said last night, we can be forgiven for thinking this because we run like a magnet to the negative qualities the second that something goes wrong, you know. Low self-esteem, anger, depression, jealousy. They come so easily. But what the Buddha is saying is this is because they're just strong habits, that's all. We've just brainwashed ourselves with these. But the true nature of what we really are, what's at the core of our being, is the positive qualities. So that alone is very inspiring, to begin to think about that, to try and give it some power, you know. Because it encourages you to want to then find the pollution and get rid of it, doesn't it? So if we can be free of suffering, if it's possible, we ought to all be on the same page about what that suffering is. If water can be free of pollution, we better all be on the same page about what pollution is. We better know how to identify it. So why? So we can remove it. But crucially, the main one is you've got to know what causes the pollution, don't you? Because if you can remove the pollution but you don't know what causes it, you'll be back to square one in 2 minutes. You've got to know the causes because that tells you the solution. You've got to know how to diagnose the problem. Then you can solve it. It's very obvious in all our daily life things. You've got to know how to label the problem accurately because the accurate labeling of the problem just tells you the solution right there. That's why in the beginning stages of practice we're very concerned with the problems, the dramas, the delusions, the junk, the pain, the hurt. You've got to focus on that. The suffering, in other words. It's not just to make you miserable and be fundamentalist about it. The major level of practice at the beginning stages of our mind is to identify the causes of our problems, to find the solution, so we can find the solution. So, okay. In the First Noble Truth, Buddha articulates very clearly what suffering is. He divides it into 3. So the first one, he calls it the suffering of suffering. It's like in-your-face suffering, you know, the stuff that we all know about, and we don't need convincing that we want to be free of it. This we know. We spend our lives trying to be free of the gross kind of suffering. And what's that? Very simply, it's the stuff that we don't like. Headaches, mean people, war zones, you know, ugly food. You understand? The regular experiences of our life. It's not rocket science. We know that's suffering. And so if you look at our lives, every split second, all our choices are propelled by the wish to avoid those things, isn't it? And to get the opposite. You think about it. This is our methodology for happiness in life. This is the usual view. We spend our lives, you know, trying to get the nice things and trying to avoid the bad things. That's it. That's it. That's it. You think about it. But for the Buddha, this is the gross level of suffering. The second kind of suffering is kind of scary to listen to because it's what we mean by happiness. What Buddha calls the suffering of change is what we mean by happiness. Then we're going to go into this, of course. But the third noble truth, that's the first noble truth, the second kind of suffering. But the second noble truth, and we're going to talk about these two together in tandem because one helps you understand the other, is where Buddha is describing the causes of suffering, which is crucial, as I said. So we're going to go back and forth between these. But let's look at this one, because this really helps us get our head around Buddha's whole approach to life, you know. If you think about the world, ordinary world, gardening, music, microphones, you know, we can see very easily that the law of cause and effect applies. That's it. We don't call it that in the West, the law of cause and effect. We don't say that. We kind of can, we know what it means, though. And what cause and effect means is you do this and you'll get that, isn't it? You put that and that together and you'll get that result. You put the seed in the ground, you water it, you get the, you know, in the soil, the sun shines at a certain spot, and what will come will be a fruit. So we can narrow that down to a couple of the main causes, couldn't we? We'd say a seed and the soil and the sun and water, and you get the result. But if you want to really analyze it, you go much more. It gets much more sophisticated. There's so many more factors involved, aren't there, to bring a fruit. But even more so, a microphone. If you had to write down like a list of instructions for a person to make a microphone, you'd have a pretty fat book, wouldn't you? Do you see my point here? Gardening is more simple. You know, you buy your seeds, people know roughly about it, you get the soil, the sun does its job, bit of water on there, and you cross your fingers and you get a fruit, you know? But a microphone is much more intricate. But the law is the same, isn't it? You've got to have a series of things come together in a very precise way, and then you'll get a microphone. But the logic's the same. You get my point so far? It's very simple. It's very obvious, isn't it? Now, we look at a thing called a microphone. We look at a thing called a flower. Well, let's look at a thing called a moment of suffering. It's a thing you can point to, a moment of suffering. At 5:07, you know, Robina suffered. Had a moment of, say, suffering. So let's analyse the causes of that moment of suffering. Not because you want to replicate it, because you want to avoid having it in the future. So you've got to know what causes it. It's obvious. If you want to know how to make a microphone, you've got to know what causes it. But if you want to know how to avoid, you know, a weed, you've got to know the causes. So you'll avoid causing it. It's the same logic. So here, we're talking about a moment of suffering. Well, then let's look at the view we have now. What's the cause of your suffering, Robina? Fred hit me. As far as we're concerned, as far as I'm concerned, there's one cause, isn't it? Just one. That's it. One cause. And it's called Fred. Well, that's a bit irrational. That's like saying, what's the cause of that microphone? I made it. Are you hearing my point? It's not enough. You're just one of the tiny factors, Robina. It's a bit arrogant. It's a bit overreaching here to think that you are the cause of a microphone. You are one of the many factors, indeed a crucial one. You're one of the many causes of a microphone. It's like saying, what caused the flower? Oh, I grew it. It's a bit arrogant. It's a bit over-exaggerating, isn't it? Kind of hear the philosophy behind it. That's what I'm trying to get at here. That's what we think, though, when it comes to suffering and happiness. It's completely hysterical. We over-exaggerate one factor. So why are you happy, Robina? Mary was kind to me. And even as we hear this, it's sort of puzzling. So what all Buddha's saying is, just like with microphones and flowers, hey honey, there are many causes and conditions that have to come together to produce that moment of suffering and that moment of happiness. So Buddha would say, for example, for that moment of happiness, the main cause, let's say someone gave you $100. Well, the main cause of that, Robina, he will say this, the main cause of how come you got $100 and therefore you're seeing that as happiness is some generosity that you practiced in a past life, maybe 3 lives ago, that left a seed in your mind that is now, when it meets the condition called Mary, is ripening as this receiving of $100. But that's just one. That's one of the main ones, but it's one. There are many others. The fact that you met Mary, the fact that Fred introduced you to Mary, the fact that you went to the same school and you met 17 years later. There are millions of other conditions in this daily life that cause Mary and you to even meet. If you had to track back all the things that had to come together for you and Mary just simply to meet, you'd have a book. And you can't discount, you can't not factor in those causes and conditions. Just like with the microphone. But that's what we do. So what Buddha's saying is right now we have these hysterical, exaggerating, distorting, unbelievably mistaken views about why I suffer and why I'm happy. So he says as long as we have these mistaken views, we'll continue to suffer and we'll never get happiness. As long as you don't have the right causes, all the right things together, you'll never get a microphone. So we understand this in the West. We are geniuses at understanding the law of cause and effect in the physical world. We are absolute geniuses in the Western culture. Look at us. Because we understand, we started off with the basic thing called numbers. This is our tool. And we're geniuses at knowing it precisely. So we're able to create the most astonishing things perfectly. Now look at us emotionally. An absolute mess. Because we haven't even begun, Buddha says, to even begin to understand some of the most basic causes of why we suffer and why we're happy. We've got it wrong to the point of complete hysteria and mental illness. He says we're completely and utterly mistaken. That's why we continue to suffer, and that's why we never find happiness, because we haven't found the correct recipe. We've got the wrong understanding. Now, it's a very reasonable, you'd have to deduce that, because it's true. We haven't stopped suffering, and we don't ever find happiness that's permanent. But we can make microphones, and we can deduce we've found the right causes of microphones, but we haven't found the right causes of being freed from suffering or getting happy. You can deduce that. It's logical. It's not an insult. It's logical. So this brings us again to the third noble truth, where Buddha would assert that the potential to be free of suffering, the potential to be full of happiness, is something that is a genuine thing that can be achieved, that is stable and workable, like a microphone. It functions. Buddha is asserting that happiness is the potential of our mind just naturally, and when we have achieved it, like the microphone, it functions stably. It's not a hit and miss thing. It's not just sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't. Once you've got the right causes and you have the right methods, you will achieve that result. He's as practical and as precise as that. In just the same way we are when it comes to microphones. But because it's spiritual, as we call it, we think it's a la-di-da, hit and miss mystical affair. We don't think you apply this type of rigorous clarity and discipline and accuracy to it. It seems really peculiar, actually. Microphones and carpentry, yes. Happiness and suffering, come on, So what do we think? Okay, more broadly, what are the other things we think that are the causes of happiness? Well, generally speaking, what we think the causes of happiness are is accumulating the things that we like. People, environments, food, sounds, smells. So we do apply our discipline and rigour and accuracy to this. Definitely. We spend our lives, don't we, trying to surround ourselves with all the nice things. Why? Because we are convinced that will bring happiness, even though our experiences continually prove to us that they won't, that they don't. But we find that so unbearable, we never confront it. But it's so obvious. Just do your market research. Talk to rich people. Talk to beautiful people. Talk to people who've got beautiful husbands. Talk to people who've got beautiful houses. Ask them a few questions. Within 3 minutes, you will discover they're depressed, they're angry, they're having a mental breakdown, they're not happy. Now, you do some more market research among some people who haven't got nice houses and have got an ugly husband, who are in prison, who are sick, and you might find that some of them actually are happy. They're not depressed, they're not angry, they feel joyful. So straight away, without too much investigating, you're going to find that the methods we think are the cause of happiness and the things that we think are the cause of suffering aren't the main ones. This is not rocket science, I tell you. Just do your market research and you will find this out. Ask yourself. But we don't like to put this together. It's too painful. Why? Because Buddha says we're addicted, completely addicted to these wrong methods. And it's as scary as hell to question them. We're junkies, basically, you know. And it's highly unintelligent. I mean, we think in the West we're so intelligent. And when it comes to microphones, we are. When it comes to happiness, we're not. When it comes to emotions, we're not. We're like babies. We're 3-year-olds, you know. Not even 3 sometimes. So in the second Noble Truth, where Buddha talks about the causes of suffering, he basically narrows it down to 2 main ones. Like I said, gardening, you can narrow it down to 1 or 2 main ones. You can get the main ones. And if you want to be really intricate, certainly with microphones, you'd have a whole book of things you've got to be very accurate about. But he narrows it down to 2 main causes. And to listen to this, to hear this and to work and to run with it, you've got to take as your hypothesis this continuity of mind. Because without that, this view of the Buddha's just doesn't stand. It's useless. It's just wasting time. Because he's saying, like I said, the 2 main causes are called karma, and the second one is delusions. So there's the experience of suffering, and there's my view of it. It's caused by Fred punching me. Well, and so as far as I'm concerned, there's one main cause, isn't there? But as far as the Buddha's concerned, there are 2 main causes that if I get in touch with and start to work with, this is the method for getting rid of the suffering. And it's a shock to us to hear that Fred is not one of those main causes. He's not even a main cause for my suffering. This is a big surprise, and we think he's the only one. And Buddha says he's not even one of the main ones. He's a secondary one. You can't say he's not. But the Buddha says there are 2 main ones. One is karma, which simply means, this word karma is Sanskrit, and it means, simply speaking, it means action. Action. But it has this sort of dynamic implication, doesn't it, of reaction. That meaning of action rather than just sort of, that's an action, who cares, you know. Action, reaction, cause, effect, seed, fruit, you know, action, result. This is a dynamic process. So what Buddha's saying is very simply, everything we think, every split second, everything we say, and everything we do with our body is a karma, is an action that just necessarily will bring a reaction, forget about the outside world, within your own mind. Another analogy would be everything you say, do and think leaves a seed in your mind that necessarily ripens in the future in your mind as your experiences. Really, almost you can say this is almost like the creation principle as far as Buddha is concerned. So if you look at yourself now, you can see you have certain tendencies, good ones and bad ones. You can see you have certain physical experiences. You can see in your life you have certain relationships. You have a certain way of responding to the external environments. For some people the sun burns them. For some people it doesn't burn them so much. For some people milk causes to die just about. For other people milk nourishes them. For some people the water they drink in the river is poison. For others it's healthy. Even this, so all the experiences we have, Buddha says, as in relation to our environment, all the experiences we have in relation to other people, all the experiences we have in relation to our own body, all the thoughts we have that arise in our mind, all our tendencies, and therefore the actions we do with our body and speech, all of this, every single fraction of it, they're all fruits of seeds that I planted in my mind in the past. So Buddha's like saying, really, he's saying you're the creator of your own life. Your actions in the past left seeds in your mind that are now ripening in the present as your life, your experiences, your tendencies, your happiness, your suffering. That is the main cause. That is the main cause. This is what Buddha is saying. So to assume this, of course, you've got to assume your consciousness existed before. And that every split second of what you say, do and think in the past leaves seeds in your mind. And right now in this life, just a few of those seeds are ripening. Just a few, tiny number. And that every single thing you say, do and think now necessarily leaves a seed in your mind that unless you pull it out will ripen as your experiences in the future. Now this is why the seed-fruit analogy is really simple. You know perfectly well when you look in your garden, because you know a bit about botany, that whatever's there is the fruit of seeds. You just know that. Whether you like it or not, I don't care. Whether it's a good garden or an ugly one, whether it's weeds or herbs or flowers, you just know simply by knowing the law of botany that they're the fruits of seeds. That's it. And it's your garden, honey. Well, that's the way to think of your life. Whatever it is you're experiencing, whatever it is you're seeing, having, feeling, it's the fruit of your past actions. You're the creator of yourself. So not to think of this in a miserable way. On the contrary, it's so empowering. We should be so happy to hear this, actually. The other one's just the victim. I didn't ask to get born. Who wants to be a victim? It's a horrible state of mind. But that's what we think. Other people make us. We're the result of someone else's work. I mean, that to me is an insane concept. It's fascist. It's horrible. It's complete victim. You're setting yourself up for a disaster. Your hands are tied. What's it got to do with you? I didn't ask to get born. It's not my anger. It's not my jealousy. It's my mother's, my father's. They did it to me. I mean, no wonder we're all angry and freaking out, having mental breakdowns. It's a terrible view. This view puts you squarely into the center of your own reality, gives you responsibility, forces us to grow up, to own all the goodness and all the badness. It's kind of interesting. Just intellectually, thank you very much. I find it a very workable view. Because if I am the cause of what I am now, then I can be the cause of what I will become. If I am the cause of my music, then it empowers me to do it again. If you feel like you're in charge of your life and you can do the math and do this and go here and do there, then you don't feel like a victim. It's only if you feel always someone else has done it for you and you're all scaredy baby and you can't walk out the door and I can't do anything. This is what causes us to be insane. Look at our suffering when you don't feel empowered. We understand this in the West. We talk a lot like this. Well, Buddha's the ultimate in empowerment. He actually says you made yourself. You're not some random event. You're not somebody else's creation like Frankenstein, which is what we think. You actually made yourself, babe. This is the most empowering you could ever imagine. So it alleviates fear. There's no fear, no anger. From this view, when it's deeply internalized, when it becomes in the bones of our being, it completely goes beyond anger and fear and the neuroses, because they're the symptoms of the victim. They're the symptoms of no power. Okay, we've got to look into this to see it. And it happens slowly, you know. So the first cause of my suffering moment of when Fred punches me was the seed I planted in my mind in the past when I harmed that consciousness. Sure, he wasn't Fred then, but you know, even the Buddha would say even this, that you just can't meet people randomly. We think everything's random in the West, and of course we would think so because we think we began in our mother's womb. So it's reasonable to think it's random. You meet the person who gives you $100, or you meet the person who punches you in the nose. They're both random events, aren't they? They just sort of happen, come from left field. So sure, the good ones, we want more of those, but the bad ones, how dare they happen? We get very upset about those. Well, the Buddha says, you know, even my coming together with Fred, this seemingly random passing of each other on the freeway or on the street, you know, it's not random. Not possible. Nothing's accidental. There's no fruit in your garden that is just random, that there's no cause for. Oh, well, they come from seeds, but this one, who knows, you know? Don't be ridiculous. If it exists in your garden, it came from a seed. The laws of botany apply, whether you like it or not. Well, the laws of cause and effect apply, Buddha says. The laws of karma. It's a natural law, like gravity. No one invented it. He didn't make it up, you know. So this consciousness that we label Fred now, and this particular consciousness here that we label Robina, they come together due to past connection, past being together, that causes us to come together again. And so then the quality of our coming together is determined by the way we came together in the past. You know? The way you planted that thing and how you nourished it determines the way the fruit ripens. It's obvious. The way you play the piano today is the result of how you played it yesterday. If you played it lousily, you're lousy playing today. Nothing surprising. We understand cause and effect. If you're a bit clumsy when you make your microphone, it won't work properly. So, you know, my meeting Fred is the result of some past, of our two consciousnesses having connected. And then the quality of our coming together now, that is to say Fred looks at me and can't stand the sight of me and punches me in the nose, is the result of something, because I'm part of it, is the result of an interchange we had in the past. And simplistically speaking, you know, that's my punch coming back. Mary gives me $100. It's my $100 coming back. As Lama Zopa puts it, everything we experience is our own karmic appearance. Our own karmic appearance. Whoever you meet. The humans, the rats. That's your rat. That's not my rat. They're in your house, not mine. That's your rat. You have a connection with that rat, that consciousness. So if that rat's eating your house, you know, the usual view is, how dare that rat eat my house? Well, it thinks it's his house. Excuse me, don't be rude. That's your rat. You've got some karmic connection. That you've harmed that rat in the past. So here it is eating your house, you know, harming you, leaving its caca behind and everything. So whatever it is that that appears in front of us, the kisses or the punches, they're the result of something like that to that consciousness in the past. This is the cause of it. It's not meant to be like blame, like a big stick you use to beat yourself, which is how we think of karma. Buddha's just saying this is the cause. This is how it works. But the second cause of my suffering, and this is the crucial one, and even karma subsumes down to this one finally, is the deluded response. The delusion, in this case, would be anger, let's say. How dare you punch me? Freak out, fear, panic. Punch back, isn't it? And that causes me to punch back. So what does that do? That causes me to sow another seed in my mind that I don't pull out, that then ripens as further punches. So in relation to these two main causes, there are two main solutions. The most urgent, as Lama Zopa puts it, the most urgent is to work on the mind right now. What's that? To work on the mind right now. Because, you know, given, you see, it's very simple, given that that weed has just popped up, that punch has just come, you didn't pull the seed out, did you? So it's a bit late to pull the seed out. You can't, it's just ripened. So you can't stop the punch now, that's too late. But you can work on your mind and prevent yourself from responding in the same way again. And that's how you cut. So the most urgent level of practice is to work on your mind and to protect yourself from harming again, which sows another seed in your mind, which will ripen into your future punches. So this first level of practice, this is like junior school, you know. Now this is actually, we're talking junior school and high school both together. The first and second levels of practice. We're not discussing here compassion for others. That's advanced. We're looking here deeply into what is my suffering and what causes it and how to go beyond it. This is what I have to learn. It's about myself. Then I can be of benefit to others. But I've first got to know how about myself. So when I can own the fact that I am the main cause of this punch just now, I can learn that I don't like punches. Then I realize, because I'm the cause of it, that I don't want a future punch. So that is why I wouldn't want to punch him back. So why the Tibetans are not having a war, you know, why the Dalai Lama, you know, when you watch that movie Kundun, and all the way through, you know, there was never ever a discussion, will we have a war? He didn't have to agonize over it. Oh, we're good Buddhists, we better not have a war. You could see it was beautifully depicted in the movie. It never even arose in his mind. It never even arose once. I remember that when the young, you know, the middle-aged, the older Dalai Lama, you know, the one who was 16, and this is how His Holiness was when it all happened. It never even arose in his mind. Anger didn't even arise. You could see it. It was not even an option. Anger is not even an option when you have this view. Because anger, you look at the words, you look behind into anger. What is it? To Fred, how dare you punch me? Why did you punch me? I have done nothing to deserve this. It is wrong. You should not have punched me. Well, if you have the view of karma, you don't say that. It's not an option. You don't think that way. It's painful. You don't like it. You'd rather not have the punch. But your response is not the innocent victim's response because you have the view of karma. It's very meaningful experientially. It's very powerful. It's not just some intellectual trip, you know. So for Tibetans, over the years, if you look back at their history, they've never, I mean, they had a few little people. Some of the Khampas, you know, they're kind of very warrior people from a certain part of Tibet. They went out there and they made a decision they'd go off and be, you know, and fight the Chinese as guerrillas, you know. And maybe they could be you could be even motivated by compassion to do this. You could. But in general, Tibetans had no army, you know. So that was never an option for them. Not because it's just they're weak or passive. Because when you have the view of karma, that whatever you experience is the fruit of your action, and if it's called suffering, then that's the fruit of your doing harm in the past. And then realizing this very deeply, and then you realize you don't want more suffering, then of course you wouldn't punch back. It would be an insane idea. You see, this whole business of being a pacifist, like saying like that, not wanting to wage war or whatever, is not just some philosophical principle that you want to live by. When you realize the Buddhist view, and it's very dynamic, is that whatever you say, do and think is a seed you plant in your mind that will bring a fruit. This is pretty powerful. Then you wouldn't want to be angry. You wouldn't want to harm back because you don't want suffering. You see, this logic is not something that is puzzling to us. We understand it unbelievably well when it comes to the body. You look at food. We know food really well. What does that mean? We know what tastes good, but crucially these days we know what will cause us to be healthy. So if we really realize we don't want to be unhealthy, so we have a certain sickness, the most delicious chocolate in the world would look like poison to us. Because we know if we eat it, it will cause us suffering. So of course we won't want to do it. It's not because you've got a principle about chocolates or about forget nice chocolates. Doesn't matter. Ugly food, poison food. If some food had some poison in it, simple example. There's just, no matter how tasty it looks, no matter how tasty it tastes, if you know it will cause you sickness, It is not possible for you to want to do it. You won't be persuaded because you understand cause and effect. You understand cause and effect. You know it would be destroying yourself. That's why people give up smoking. It was a very delicious experience. I loved smoking cigarettes. Smoked 80 a day at my best, worst. And why did I give it up? It was obvious, because it caused me suffering. So I gave up the pleasure of it, the compulsion to do it, because I didn't want suffering. That's the same reasoning here, identical. But when it comes to emotions, we don't have the same intelligence. When it comes to food, we're brilliant at it. We understand cause and effect. That if I eat that, I'll get that result. But with actions, with karma, with emotions, with these things, we have no clue. We don't think of cause and effect. We know anger. Actually, if we analyse anger, we know it harms us. We do know that if we really check it carefully. And you can certainly see it with other people. We do understand cause and effect. But we're so overwhelmed by being the victim. We're so overwhelmed by the righteousness of it. And we don't really understand that it has consequences for me. We don't get that one at all. That's why we're so unintelligent when it comes to emotions. Food, we're intelligent. Emotions, we're pathetic. Because we don't even understand. We certainly might see short-term consequences of anger, but because we're so overwhelmed by being a victim, I'm allowed to be angry, we'll say. Well, you might be, but what good is it? It's going to poison you. It's going to cause you to keep being angry, and the karmic one is it will actually cause that harm to come back to you later. So what a foolish person. So, okay, in the beginning it's a massive struggle because anger's our habit, jealousy's our habit, attachment's our habit. This is what Buddha means by suffering, and we're going to into the deeper level of suffering. We're going to go into this. So, but having this as a basis gives you the reason why you want to change anger, jealousy, depression, anxiety. Not because you're just a bad person, you feel guilty. It's like why you want to give up cigarettes and why you want to give up poison food, because you don't want to suffer. It's really straightforward. But one has to think about it. I think I'm supposed to give us a break. So have a couple of questions, then we can have a little break, and then we can come back. Yep.
So, is there ever any cause then for defending self or other if it's not, if the basis of it is not anger?
I understand. Yeah, we're going to go into that in great detail, actually. Yes. So when, the crucial thing here, when we really look deeply into why we do things and how we break it down, how we create karma, we look into this very deeply. We're going to see that if you look at the usual scenario, what makes an action bad in Buddha's terms isn't because Buddha said so, is because it comes from a neurotic place. So if I analyse the usual thing of, let's say Fred punches me, then I'm going to punch him back. So in other words, the action is punching, but what's the motivation for it? The motivation is to harm Fred. Do you see? It's a destructive motivation. So he's harming me for the same reason. And that's what anger is. Anger is a very destructive motivation that wants to harm another. And that's what makes it negative, and that's what causes all the harm. So that's why we want to give it up. So we can easily see a situation like a mum, I'm your mum. And I've told you 4 times, no more chocolate, and you keep having the chocolate. And I realise the only way I'm going to stop you is no more chocolate, and you're going to burst into tears thinking, Mummy's so mean. But if I'm a good mummy, my motivation is really pure, isn't it? So I'll show, like, strength, and that'll be what works to help you, won't it? So then, yes, any action done with pure compassion, I'm not pure, we've got to start somewhere, wished to try and help. If I just wish to punch Fred, then it's a negative action. It's very simple. But if I can see Fred's a bit of a maniac and he's out of control, and the only way to stop him, for my sake as much as his, is to sort of knock him out. Do you see my point? One has to look. In other words, one has to know one's mind really well, though. Right now, we can see we're motivated by delusion. We're motivated by ego. We're motivated by anger. So the first level of practice is to quit, not harm. Then once you really work on your mind, you get very developed and you've gone beyond the delusions. And on the compassion wing level, yes, of course, you can do something that looks harmful, but for a pure reason. But you've got to go one step at a time.
So you could punch Fred back if it was from a place of wanting to prevent him from further harming you and thus further harming himself?
That's the second bit is the main point. In other words, right now, as I'm saying, the main motivation we have for doing the neurotic things we do is not compassion, is it? It's self-centered. You see my point? The world, this is how we are. So the first level of practice is you've got to stop that one first. Control yourself, back away, don't speak, don't punch, work on your mind first. Then that's all the wisdom wing work, that's the initial work, and it's a big job. Then when we become more developed and we've harnessed our delusions more, you can imagine where you can be motivated by compassion, not just only to defend yourself, because that's just ego, but actually even for Fred's sake, like the mother for her child. So that's quite advanced. But we can see it's possible. You see my point? Yeah, of course, absolutely. In other words, you know, the meaning of this isn't just sit back and be passive and, oh, well, I can't harm Fred back. I mean, you know, you look at the Dalai Lama. He doesn't believe in violence. He doesn't use violence, but he's not just sitting there being passive. He hasn't stopped for 40 years, using every method imaginable to help the situation change. He's totally dynamic. So not being angry doesn't mean being passive, which is what we tend to think. It doesn't mean that at all. You use lots of other creative methods. You find new options. You see my point? We think no anger means being passive. That's really wrong. Not at all. Yeah. Someone else? Yeah.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah. Hello, my dear.
You know, I think I'm sitting here still thinking that it takes more than just intellect to get through some of these things.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I was thinking of an example, which might invite some personal sharing on my part, which is if I had talked to you, say, 2 years before you had your last cigarette, and I said, Robina, that's poisonous. You're
That's
just
right.
really hurting
That's
yourself.
Forget it. Not ready.
Get it in your mind,
That's
Robina. You're just not on the right wavelength.
No way.
You would have looked at me
That's right.
and said, Dan,
Exactly. That's exactly right. And that's, you can see the timing of it is amazing. So I might have heard that 1,000 times, and I would have. And then, but it came, I remember the moment it finally, the penny dropped. So that's the point. You've got to hear it and hear it again and again. And then at some point the penny drops. You've got to practice and practice playing that piano, and one day you can play it well. So there is a process, and it's true. You can see it. So I can see, for me, the moment, I remember the moment I finally made the decision to quit the smoking, because it became too much. But it didn't come out of nowhere. It was the timing of it. So I can see too, even if I think of, say, me listening to Buddhism, we were using this example yesterday, you know, I'd heard about Buddhism. I remember vividly this one. I met Lama Yeshe, for example, in 1976, right? And I was in Queensland. Well, in 1974, when I was in New York, and I was still a radical feminist and doing my karate and everything and very politically active, I heard that they were in New York about the same time that I arrived. I'd come from England. But I just think of it this way. If I'd met them then, I would have thought they were these dumb idiots, you know. I wouldn't want to hear their boring old things, boring old Buddhism. I was still a radical feminist, and I was into all these other things. My mind wasn't ready. My mind wasn't ready. I had to go through 2 more years in my own internal process of processing things till eventually the penny dropped. And then when I heard their names and I met them, it made sense to me. So everything is like this. It's timing. Timing and your readiness, you know. You can bring a horse of water, you can't make it drink, but it's certain, and that's where the skill of, like being a therapist, like in your case, of how to help people. We have to have enough wisdom to know what is appropriate to say when, because, you know, it's like a parent as a kid. You can bash the kid on the head 22 times about what's right, but if your mind's not ready to hear it, then don't waste your breath, you know. It's true, isn't it? So the skill is to know our own when we're ready for it ourselves. So the intellectual part is the beginning. That's like the practice of the piano. You're not ready to do your concert yet. You'd be embarrassed. But you would never be able to be ready to do the concert if you hadn't done those years of practice at home. So all the penny dropping for something experientially in this talk here, in this way of the Buddhist approach, is the thinking about it. That's the initial work. It looks to us just like meaningless and just merely intellectual. But when we understand the Buddhist approach to the power of thoughts and how they become experiential, then it's just the thinking about it again and again that is the part that primes you for the experience of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Someone else? Yeah.
Question about latency with karma. So some things might take a short time, and some might take 20 lifetimes.
To ripen, yeah.
Is something deterministic there, or is it because there's 20 seeds in between?
It's not deterministic. It's just this logic of, like, you know, if you have a very tiny seed, it's like a little tiny, and, you know, one day you get the fruit and it dies tomorrow, don't you, in your garden? Some little seeds are very fragile. But another one, an oak, you plant an oak tree, whatever, you know, you plant a acorn. It's a big, fat thing that'll take 100 years to ripen. I mean, it's just how things are. And karmically, talking at an energetic level, that's all it is. The more powerful all the parts, the things are in the way you do something, and the more powerful, let's say, in a relationship, let's say you just kind of knock over an ant, little tiny bit of aversion, you know. An ant is this fairly distant creature for you, and it might take many years for that little tiny action, not much power behind it, not much aversion really. That's a very small action, you know. Well, that'll take more time to ripen than, say, you with huge fury stabbing your mother 42 times. First of all, there's a much more powerful karmic connection between you and the particular woman in this life who's your mum. That ant was your mother 100 lives ago, maybe, but at this moment in the relationship between you now is a very mild relationship. But the one of your mother in this life, it's a very tasty karmic connection, powerful karmic connection. You get born in her body, for God's sake. I mean, if that's not close. And then with fury and rage, you stab her 27 times. That's a pretty intense action you just created, and that could easily ripen very quickly. So it's a logical thing. It's not deterministic. It's an energetic thing, you know. You see my point. And the same with very good karma. You know, you rush out and you sacrifice your life for your mother out of enormous affection and compassion. That's equally super powerful and can ripen very quickly for you. Someone else? Well, let's have a little break then. And Soma she was being very polite, but when she had the class just for an hour and a half in the morning, I said, "There's not enough time." And she said, "Oh, well, last year people complained it was a bit intense." I think meaning I was intense. So I said, "Oh, well, all right, I'll give them a half an hour break." So we'll have a little break, okay? Cup of tea break or a walking around the block break, okay?